Hello there, listeners. His name is Aaron, and he can't wait to show you his collection of pre-World War One stamps.
And his name's Tamalama Ding Dong, and he likes to party.
Yeah, and this is the Super Pod Saga
We're
episode
here.
number 13. Lucky
Yes,
13.
that's it.
The luckiest of podcast numbers. What's our topic today? You got to pick this one. I'm excited.
Yeah. Today we're gonna talk about Sega.
Okay, let's do the Sega thing on three. One, two, three.
Sega.
Sega. Okay, we did different ones, and that's totally okay.
Oh man, I remember that one from all the different commercials they had back in the '90s.
Which I have no memory of. Like everything Sega entered my brain and exited right away because I was like,
Ooh,
that's not Mario. So why did you pick Sega for our topic?
it's just fun to talk about because like for a little while it seemed like they were kind of unstoppable, and then pre- pretty quickly they just crashed and burned.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different points. Like I've got a lot that we could talk about in case you didn't have like a whole lot, but I jotted down quite a bit, and I went
I,
into a little bit of detail with a few of them.
I wrote down Sonic the Hedgehog and Sega Genesis. I have Sega knowledge. It's just not a lot because it wasn't my thing. But I am very
Right,
excited to talk about it because yeah, the it's not a lot of consoles that just or companies that make a top tier video game console and then stop. Like I don't know if that's ever really happened aside from them.
right. Like they've had it was four home consoles, and then just they bombed. I mean, it wasn't really they bombed. I guess they got beat pretty badly, but it was also weird is like most other consoles, like say like the Atari did like two or three, I believe, and then
Hmm.
like other ones had were like one and done. But Sega's, I think they're still going pretty hard in arcades today, mostly in Japan, of course. But
Yeah, yeah. So where do you want to start this Sega conversation, Mister Sega Man?
all right, I mean, I'm definitely no expert like a lot of the people on Twitter, but
You
I've
are
got like
the
a
expert
pretty.
of this podcast.
That's true. This is our podcast. They can all piss off. Just kidding. I mean, you're yeah.
Unless you're into that.
But that's true. That's true. There's a whole genre of stuff there on the internet for that. So whatever you're into. But I guess to start us off, I had like a really brief, I guess, timeline of all of Sega's doings.
Yes,
And it's
yes.
super brief, but it's not going to take a while at all. So, um, really, Sega started back in the 1940s. They were making coin-operated slot machines,
Ah,
and
classic.
it was in the 1970s that they started into the arcade market, and they had a few games here or there they started with, but they started really developing that back right around the 80s, which early 80s, 1983 actually was when they brought out their first home console, being the SG 1000,
The
which
SG
was
1000.
yep, that was their very first home console.
That is not a
Um,
catchy name by
no, not at all.
any stretch of the imagination.
And it was supposed to be like the competitor for the NES because they had gotten a pretty hefty whiff, a big old whiff of like Nintendo was working on going from arcades to home consoles with the NES, and Sega was like, oh, maybe we should hop in on that too because that was all the rise back in the 80s because the Atari had been blown up after the console crash, of course, but um, yeah, the SG 1000 went through two different revisions, and the third one actually being the I guess like their main competitor for the NES. That was the Master System.
There we go.
Um,
Now we're talking about things that I've heard of. This
yep,
one actually has a controller too. The SG 1000, I looked, it had like more of an Atari like controller.
yeah. This one was really where it started. It was almost like the NES controller. It was obviously rectangle like it and had like little buttons and stuff, but it wasn't like the huge joystick or anything like that. Um, but yeah, the in 1985 is when the Master System came out. Everywhere, like in Japan, I believe it was only known as like the Mark III or something like that. Um, but then, just 3 years later, in 1988, the in Japan, and pretty much everywhere except the U.S., that the Mega Drive was released. Um, us in the U.S. only know it as a Genesis. It was the Mega Drive literally everywhere else but the U.S.
That confused
And
me so much. Just like
yeah,
listening to podcast people talk about old systems, because I barely touched a Genesis, and then I heard Mega Drive, and I just assumed it was something else. Mega Drive
right.
is a way better name.
I know. I like the
Mega
Genesis. It's
Drive.
Mega Drive. That's yeah. Those separate names do kind of mess me up too. Like when people like I've gotten the Famicom and Super Famicom. Those like click with me, NES and SNES. But then there's
True.
like the PC Engine and the
Oh my
TurboGrafx
gosh.
16. Like sometimes I have to. Sometimes it reels me back a little bit. I'm like, wait, what? And
Yeah,
then
yeah. Also, holy
um
crap, like 3 years and then 3 years later another system? That's crazy.
yeah, it's super. What's really weird too is that Sonic the Hedgehog and like a few other their staple games first came out on the Master System, and then eventually they made like enhanced. I wouldn't really call them ports. I guess I would say like enhanced like remakes of them for the Genesis / Mega Drive, and it's super weird to think like normally when you think Genesis you think Sonic the Hedgehog, but
Hmm.
no, it originally came out on the Mark III or Master System.
Just learned that. I learned that right now.
And the cases for games for the Master System were really really boring because they were just gray and they had like grid lines and it was just let me look up one real fast. Say Alex
Game
Kidd
case.
Master System
It
case.
honestly, some of them almost look like modern takes on what a game card like a because they're so simple. It's just like one image, the words, and white lines on the background. What's that
Yeah,
called?
just like the grids or yeah
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. It's
So
also the art on the front of those two is really goofy too. Like one of these Alex Kidd ones that I'm looking at. They're just it reminds me of the NES Mega Man art where it looked nothing like what you would think Mega Man looks like. It's just like
oh my
some
gosh, those Mega
realistic
Man
looking
ones are
human.
crazy.
Yeah.
And they all
Uh,
say the Mega cartridge.
yeah. Some of them have like on the top left they'll have like they'll
Action.
have the genre I should say on the top left, which is really really weird.
So
Well, I
helpful.
guess not really weird, but yeah.
Adventure role playing. Arcade. Neat.
God, there was a lot of Alex Kids. Holy cow!
People
And
love their Alex Kidd. I don't even know what Alex Kidd looks like.
actually, Alex Kidd was the original mascot for Sega before Sonic.
What?
Yep, yep. Once Sonic came along, though, especially I think it was on the Genesis, people really started picking up on Sonic.
Oh
That's
yeah.
when he
Oh
became
yeah.
the mascot for Sega. But well, yeah, the Sega was like it was a good system. There was a lot of weird stuff Sega did with that. Um, I believe, yeah, it was the Genesis was known as like the cooler console compared to the SNES because
Mm-hmm.
the SNES was like fun for the whole family. Everybody can play it, kids, adults, whatever. But Genesis was like, no, bud, we're the cool punk '80s '90s console. Like we have blood on Mortal Kombat and all
Yeah.
sorts of other goofy
Yeah.
stuff like that.
That's so crazy that like they turned the blood into smoke on the Nintendo version.
I know it's and then um they had that whole thing with Sega does what Nintendo don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that the Genesis era?
Yep, that was the Genesis.
That
And
was
then
I don't remember that rivalry because I was just a bit too young, but I
you know,
they definitely don't do that anymore.
no, it was like it was. I feel like that competition, like that console war, like actually was a
That's
console
yeah,
war. Was
that's a console war.
that was super fierce because they were taking blows at each other. But there was there's a lot of goofy stuff that Sega did with the Genesis. Like, have you ever heard of the Sega CD or the 32X or the
Maybe
Sega
in
Channel?
maybe in passing, but that's it.
Okay. Um, so the Sega CD was essentially just like an add-on for the Genesis that let it play these special, um, rather than being on cartridges, like the name suggests, you play them on like CD-ROMs and stuff, and they would have better music, slightly better
Mm.
graphics. They contain more content because you can hold more on a CD than you could on a cartridge. Cartridge. And I guess what really killed that one was that they kind of stopped supporting it pretty like as soon as it feels like as soon as it went out of the market, they stopped supporting it pretty much like maybe a few months after that. I think it was like maybe just a couple years actually, but um, they didn't support it really all that well. There was maybe like a few games for it, and it was also really high priced for the time because I mean, you already own a console. Why pay another like $200 for big old CD add-on? That was pretty ridiculous to think of
Yeah,
back in those days.
I was gonna say I can't think of how you would sell that. Yeah, like people, especially back then, people like had their console and that was it. Telling them like, hey, if you buy this add-on, it'll be slightly better. It's a
And
tough sell.
I think the main reason they made that, or I don't think I know for I guess, but there was we've talked about that TurboGrafx 16 and how
Hmm.
that one was they used these little special disc cartridge things that basically the Sega CD was made to kind of I guess compete with that because
Hmm.
I don't know why you wouldn't want to. I guess looking back now, I don't know why they wanted to compete with the TurboGrafx 16 because that didn't sell at all. Really, it wasn't all that popular, but they did.
Hey, that's we've seen other video games do that. When Nintendo made the motion controls, everyone was like, "We got to have our version of motion controls," even though Xbox and PlayStation gamers were like, "No, no, we're fine. You don't need to." And
Yeah.
they're like, "We gotta."
That was Sega with a lot of things. Really, it seems
Mm.
like the another one that they kind of I guess crapped out was when they were doing the transition um, from 16-bit to the 32-bit era. Um, Sega was like, "Hey, if you don't want to buy the next console, you could buy this add-on for the Genesis that lets you play 32-bit games on your
Ah.
Genesis." And all it was just like another adapter that you plug into the just a cartridge slot on the system, and then there were special 32X cartridges you could play on there, and there was just like Spider-Man, was it Night Trap, and a few others, but that one, yeah, that one also bombed pretty hard. I think it was pretty popular in Japan at the time, but in the US, it didn't. Total, like overall, it sold about I want to say 800,000 maybe something like
Oof.
that.
Oof.
But yeah, and then like 3 months in, like 3 months after the damn thing launched, most third party devs just stopped making games for it because why do that when you could make you get I guess yeah the 32X is only going to be around for so long. People would eventually transition to the newer 32-bit consoles. So why support something so old when you can support the new consoles that are just gonna
Yeah.
those new games are gonna
Really.
get gobbled up way quicker than the old system.
Yeah. Really trying to have your cake and eat it too, but making it way more complex than it needs to be.
Exactly. So yeah, that thing that yeah I don't know why I get the reason behind it. They wanted to hey if you don't have enough money to move on to the next gen, get this. But then at the same time like they could have just made more Genesis games
Yeah.
instead of putting all their eggs into the 32X basket.
Yeah.
Um, but then yeah, so their next console after that was the Saturn in 1994, and oh, actually nope, I forgot to talk about actually the Sega Channel. Have you heard about that at all?
Nope. I'm gonna Google it right now while you talk about it.
Okay, so that was launched actually in December of 1994, which if you remember me just now mentioning, the Saturn was released in 1994.
Oh, yep.
The Sega Channel was it connected to your Genesis through like a special adapter you slapped onto the damn thing. Then you could connect a coaxial cable to it, and it was basically like a cable TV channel almost, but you could download games and stuff from it.
Huh.
And you had to check with your cable provider first to see if
Mm.
they offered it and stuff like that. But yeah, that was at the time it was really cool because nobody else did that kind of stuff, and I don't know for sure how the hell you would have downloaded a game over a coaxial
No,
cable
no,
now,
that's
but
insane.
I think that what was it? It was discontinued 1998. 4 years after it launched, it was discontinued. Poor thing.
I would love to know how many people actually use that.
Looking it up. At its peak, it had over 250,000.
Huh. Wait, Ken Horowitz, I don't know who that is, of Sega 16 criticizes Sega's poor timing, blah, blah, blah. According to Horowitz, quote, who would spend $13 a month to play games for a dying system? Which the dying system is a good point, but it's interesting the $13 a month because now Game Pass is like the biggest thing in the world. I just seeing some of these Sega things, I'm almost they're almost just way too ahead of time.
Mhm. That was Sega's. Yeah, that was their biggest thing. They were with the Saturn and Dreamcast. We'll kind of get into it a little bit more, but yeah, they were really ahead of their time. They were thinking like some of their decisions were kind of questionable, like the 32X and the Sega CD. Like they didn't really need to make add-ons for the Genesis when they could have just put more time and effort into making more games for the Genesis to compete with the SNES and all that other stuff. But yeah, they really did. They really were so far ahead of their time. They did a lot of stuff that no other consoles have ever
Yeah.
have ever done in their lifetime. Um, but no, yeah. So Sega Saturn in 1994, that was their 32-bit console that competed with the N64 and the PlayStation 1. And this was where things got pretty gall-darned rocky. Well, they were already rocky with all the money they wasted on the 32X and the Sega CD. But really what happened was there was back in the Genesis days, they got a lot of third-party support with sports games.
Hmm.
With the Saturn, they didn't have really any. They had like a little bit, like very minimal third-party support, really. So they had to come up with their own sport, like the Sega Sports series, basically. And there was just not a lot of third-party support on that guy. Which if you look at like the N64 and PlayStation One, most third-party games that came out would either come to both consoles or um, I'm trying to think of a few off the top of my head. I think Gex, I know for sure, was on both consoles, and I'm drawing a blank here.
Oh,
But
me too. Sorry.
no, you're all good. But yeah, lack of third-party support, and they also did this weird, I guess like you'd call it a surprise launch with the Saturn, where there was a it was an E3 or some other conference back in '94, and right at the end of their conference, after they were done showing off all their stuff, they were like, "Oh, hey, you know what? Guess what? The Saturn's out now. We just released it right now. It's out." And so like so just a bunch of retailers who had no idea the console was even out. They had to rush to put in orders to get everything, and it was just a big
Oh,
old
what a
hassle.
nightmare.
Yeah, so they had to get the console and all the different launch games and all that stuff. It was but then shortly after that too, I think maybe it was a 1 year, I believe, after the Saturn came out. The the PlayStation One was announced at some other conference, and PlayStation was just like, because when the Saturn was released, I think it was like 299, something like that, and then
Hmm.
the PlayStation One, like Sony with the PlayStation One, they were like, oh yeah, and it's only 199,
Oh,
and then yeah,
brutal.
but yeah, the PS One just slaughtered that generation with all of their third party games and how much better the graphics looked compared to the N64. And they had all sorts of different third party. They had the PS1, as we all know, it had just oodles and caboodles of games.
They
Just
came out swinging. I can't imagine like
yeah,
launching a system and getting like the number of games that Sony got for the PlayStation out of the gate. Insane.
it's kind of staggering when you think about how many games because that game or that not the game that console has so many different what you would call hidden gems, like games that were just kind of hidden underneath the radar because they had so many big releases coming here and there. I mean, they had Final Fantasy. Well, these aren't the hidden gems, but these are just like some of the, I guess some of the best, like most more high profile series that they had on there, like Final Fantasy and Wild Arms, and they had just shit tons of racing games like Twisted Metal and stuff like that.
It's
And
just thinking about it, it's a weird environment. Just thinking back how they were able to have these franchises launch and that like went going for years. Like it had Rayman, it had Spyro, it had Crash Bandicoot. Like if there's a new IP from a developer today, it takes a lot for it to become a hit. And with PlayStation, it was like just tons of them.
yeah, there were especially from not just from Sony themselves, but like other third party ones. It's so hard to imagine. But then on the Saturn, any game that came out, it sold just piss poorly because nobody even. It, the Saturn, I guess, was really popular in Japan, but in the U.S. and pretty much everywhere else, it was just nah.
I
Because
have
back in the go ahead.
I was gonna say I have to say like I have no memory of the Sega Saturn existing. Like
Yeah.
in my head, it went Genesis to Dreamcast. I have zero memory of anything in between. Like a month ago, if you would have been like, what Sega system was out at the same time as the PlayStation and 64, I would have been like, it's either the Genesis or the Dreamcast, I guess, because that just wasn't even a thing.
I know, and it's kind of sad to think about that because, yeah, back when I was a kid during that time, like during that generation, all I knew existed was the N64 and the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
If anybody was like, "Hey, it's 1994," or I guess 90, we'll say 96. Hey, what console do you want? What games do you want for it? I'd say, "Hey, I want the PlayStation and I want Final Fantasy 7,"
Yeah.
or I'd say N64, Super Mario 64. But
Yeah. Absolutely.
what's even weirder too is that the N64 didn't sell nearly as well as the PS1 did,
Hmm.
but still the N64 is just it's so popular. It's so immensely popular. So much so that I mean they've added the N64 to Nintendo Switch Online and Virtual Console and stuff like that. But
Sorry
um,
for my ignorance, but did the Saturn do 3D graphics like the Nintendo 64 and PlayStation?
oh yeah, it did.
Okay.
Oh
Okay.
yeah.
So, okay.
Um,
No idea.
the Saturn. No, I guess it wasn't the first one that did 3D graphics because I think I forget when Super Mario 64 came out, but the Saturn did have a lot of 3D games. Like there was Panzer Dragoon, there was Virtua Fighter. I forget what their racing series was called. There were a lot that were 3D on that one. And what's even weirder too is like all the games they had some really good games on there. The games played really well. Um, it's just sad that it just Sega didn't really seem to go. I mean, I guess it's not their fault really that they didn't go whole hog on it and really advertise it and get as much support as they really needed to for it to get it to sell. But
I mean, it's like we said, like competing against the 64 and the PlayStation. We just listed off tons of PlayStation heavy hitters. It's obvious that the Nintendo 64 had an insane amount of heavy hitters. Like,
oh yeah,
I don't know how you'd compete with that.
yeah, and that I guess that downhill snowball that they had with I guess that kind of started with the Sega CD, which was
Hmm.
the first add-on that came out for the Genesis. That all kind of go started going downhill. Went from the Mega Drive to the 32X to the Saturn, and then it kind of got a little bit uphill with the Dreamcast, which was released in 1998. That was the first of that generation of like the GameCube, Xbox, PS2, Dreamcast.
Yeah,
Um, they had they had a pretty good launch. They kind
yeah.
of played it by the books a little bit. They were like, hey, we're not gonna surprise release it. We'll put out a good price. It's got online multiplayer for free for
When
Choo
it
Choo Rocket right off the bat.
for Choo Choo Rocket, when it released, it had by far the best graphics of any system available. I I remember seeing the Dreamcast graphics and being like, that you can play that. That's not like a cutscene. That's an actual game. It was crazy. Like it was the
Yeah,
Sonic. It was the Sonic running away from the Orca whale or whatever, the killer whale.
yeah, on Sonic Adventure. Yeah,
Hmm.
and that's another big thing too with the Saturn was that because like with Nintendo, obviously people were looking forward to the next Mario game because Mario was just massive. People would come in waves to get the new Mario. But with the Saturn, there was no actual, I guess, Sonic game to it. Like there were ports of previous Sonic games and just other spin-offs, but there wasn't an actual Sonic game for the
Oh, that's
Saturn.
crazy. That's
Yeah,
crazy.
like that was their defining series really was Sonic, and
Oh yeah.
they, they had the one at the time, Sonic Extreme, and that was in development for so long because the developers that they put in there were they had no help at all. They were really, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess inexperienced really,
Mm.
both with developing for the Sega Saturn, but also with the new 3D graphics. It was gonna be fully 3D, fully open world and everything. But yeah, Sega was really rushing to get that out by the time the Saturn released, and then eventually they just canceled it. So there was no Sega Saturn Sonic game,
Do we
and
have
that kind of.
like any screenshots or video of what it was supposed to be?
Oh yeah, if you
Okay.
go if you go on like Google, you'll and just look up Sonic Extreme, you should be able to find quite a bit of stuff because there was for sure the box art, like they really they there's a lot of that. Um, I'm pretty sure there are some like prototype
Oh,
videos of
that
Sonic
is a
Extreme.
3D Sonic.
Yeah, I think there was what was it? Sonic 3D Blast? Was that the one that came out? Um,
It might have
yeah,
just been.
Sonic 3D
Oh
3D
yeah.
Blast was one of the ones that came out for Saturn. It was like an isometric, like almost pinball kind of
Oh, that
thing,
was on
but
Saturn. Okay. I I played that on a collection. We'll talk about that later though.
yeah. Um, but yeah, you get to the Dreamcast, and right off the bat, like it's sold pretty well. It sold both Japan, everywhere else, and the U.S. It sold really well. The despite the controller being kind of wonky, the cord coming out the bottom, only one stick, but it did a lot of stuff that again was really far ahead of its time. Like it had the whole thing with the memory cards, the VMUs. You
Mm-hmm.
play them like a Tamagotchi on certain games. Um, what else was there? There was the online multiplayer that was included for free. Like you didn't have to pay for it. It was just you slap your oh my god, your LAN cable from your modem into the console, and then you just play for free. There was a web browser too. You could do so much stuff on that thing. A lot of great games. But then, god damn it, the PlayStation 2 was announced.
Yup.
And then they were like, it's got a DVD player. And at the time, DVD players were expensive as hell because they were just coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, that
And
was
that's
yeah, cuz again, I know this is going to sound crazy, but back in the day, you had to purchase VHS tapes of movies and then they moved to DVD players, so you had to purchase DVDs. Like that's how you watched movies was VHSs and DVDs. So having a game console that could play DVDs on its own and it didn't cost like it was cheaper than DVD players at the time.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
it was
plays
like
games.
that that. And there was and what also kind of killed Sega a little bit. Well, I guess this probably isn't Sega's fault at all, but the PS2 was backwards compatible with almost every PS1 game, which was
Mhm.
huge
Yeah, yeah.
because lots of people bought the PlayStation and lots of people still had their PlayStation games, so they could just go right to the PS2, pop in their old games, and they're good. But yeah, in retrospect, if the Dreamcast did have like a DVD player built in, and I guess um, that probably maybe might have. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that would have saved it. It's hard to say.
Uh,
Hindsight is 2020.
again, it's just tough to go up against the heavy hitters of the PlayStation 2, which isn't that the highest selling home console of all time?
It still is.
Yeah.
I think
And
I'm pretty sure the Switch is coming close, unless I'm wrong.
yeah, Switch is getting closer, but PlayStation 2 is still up there. And Xbox came out with a Mr. John Halo taking the world by storm. Like, you just, and then the GameCube, obviously, with all the Nintendo properties. You just
Yep,
got, again, all these consoles with their heavy hitters coming in, and Dreamcast, Saturn. They don't have the heavy hitters.
that's right. And yeah, the Saturn also did, or not the Saturn, sorry, the Dreamcast also didn't have, I guess, as much third-party support again as the PS2 and all them had. But because back in those days, in that generation, it seemed like every third-party game came to all three systems, if not two.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, but yep. Nowadays, that was Sega's last console. They were like, we're out to eat 5,000 people, and then they went strictly to only software, and they did us a solid by porting most of their Dreamcast stuff and Genesis stuff to the current, not just current consoles, but also consoles back then. They had just shit tons of compilations. But for some reason, I think it was just because they lost the source code for almost everything with the Saturn, but a lot of Saturn stuff has yet to ever come to touch our lips.
I feel like I don't want to be getting too ahead of ourselves, but I feel like Sega switching to third-party video game manufacturing was the best choice for them as a company. As much as it would be
Exactly.
cool for them to still make consoles, they just couldn't hang. And since then, their franchises that they've come to make are awesome.
Right.
And
Yeah,
like I love so many Sega games, and I did not love Sega games before.
exactly. It's weird to think that, if Sega had gone either back into the console business or had they just declared bankruptcy and just washed their hands of the whole ordeal. That's a lot of future. I guess all the current Sega IPs at the time would have just gone to the highest seller, and we never would have seen a lot of the stuff we have now. But they were just like, yeah, we're still making games, but not on our consoles though.
I
And
think no, you go.
what's also really weird to think about too is that, so Atlas, the company Atlas, they make the Shin Megami Tensei and Persona games and all that, right?
I didn't know that, but yes.
Okay. Well, yeah, they bought Atlas because Atlas was going through bankruptcy,
Oh,
and they bought
Atlas.
Atlas in 2013.
I thought you said Alice, and I'm like,
Oh no.
Atlas. Yes, I know Atlas. Of course, I know Atlas.
Yeah. So they bought Atlas in 2013, and what's weird to think about now is if Sega was still in the console business, Persona 5 could have possibly been a Sega, whatever the console was at the time, exclusive, and that would have been just wild to think about.
Yeah.
But yeah, what were we gonna say though?
Um, it's just a totally random thing, but just as a sign of like how big Sega was during the Genesis age, because we talk about how like they really messed up and went downhill and everything. Um, I brought my GameCube to my uncle's farm in Minnesota, and they loved Tiger Woods PGA Tour, so they bought a GameCube, and to this day they only have two games for it, which is Tiger Woods PGA Tour and the Sonic the Hedgehog collection with like a ton of Sonic games. These
Hell yeah.
these farmers that they didn't play anything except Sonic back in the 80s.
And it's weird now too because you can get like a lot of their heavy hitters like Sonic, Space Harrier, Fantasy Zone. A lot of those you can get on not only just modern consoles but also on your smartphone through the whole Sega Ages thing. Like back in the day, it'd be like, what? You're telling me I can play Sonic the Hedgehog on my fucking phone?
Right? Not the best way to control it, but you can do it.
What's what are some of your favorite Sega games? Not just yeah,
Yakuza.
yeah,
Absolutely Yakuza. Like
that's a good one.
when I think of Sega now, I think of Yakuza, which is
Oh,
which is crazy to me, but I would have never
that's
guessed that however many years ago.
what year did the first Yakuza release?
2005.
Okay. Wouldn't it be weird if Yakuza was Dreamcast only? That'd be so weird to think about.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, thank you.
Yakuza is definitely good.
Um, we got to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog as
Yeah, we
a
do.
series.
Okay. Hell yeah. I love.
I've never been able to get it. I just don't get it.
I'm I'm kind of almost the same way. Like I've beaten maybe quite a few of the 3D Sonic games. I've never beaten Sonic 1, 2, 3, Sonic Mania, Sonic CD, Sonic and Knuckles or whatever. I've never beaten a 2D Sonic game because they piss me off so much.
I've only played it in like the Sonic collection on my uncle's GameCube, but So I am not an expert on this at all, but just as a
Yeah.
person who's played a very small amount of it, it just feels like a contradiction to me. Like the first couple of levels are super fast, super open. There's all these different routes, and I get that. I'm like, oh, this is crazy. I'm moving so fast. Ah, and then like the later levels are like the like the casino level where there's like
Mhm.
it's just confusing and there's it gets to be like maze like and you have to stand on things and wait for them to move and I'm like,
Yep.
what happened to the speed?
Yeah, that also threw me for a loop too. I remember for sure there was one of the ones that I hate the most is it was like Chemical Zone, I think. And that level pisses me off more than any other level in any other video game ever because it starts off so fast. You're just zooming all over the place. You're fucking Ferrarying all over the goddamn level. And then you drop into that one area where it starts to fill up with water. And then God forbid you miss a fucking jump and then it goes dun 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 dun
Oh,
dun
that
dun dun dun
music.
and then you run out of air and you die because you missed a fucking jump barely. I hate that part so much.
And then the 3D Sonics, your Sonic Adventures, your Sonic, all
Oh
those games.
yeah.
People love
Oh my
those. People who
God.
grew up with those games absolutely adore them.
I got the first Sonic Adventure when it came on GameCube because I was a totally naive kid, had no idea the Dreamcast was ever a thing. I got Sonic Adventure DX Director's Cut, which is a mouthful, but I played the piss out of that game because I love Sonic. And then I came to find out they have the Chow Garden, which was I'm doing you can't see it right now, but I'm doing the Italian like
The Chef's
hand
Kiss.
sign thing. Yes, yes. Oh, the Chow Garden. Oh my God. You just raise little chows, up their stats. You raise other chows, beat their little fucking baby asses, and
How has no one made an off-brand Chow Garden? Because again, that's another thing that everyone seems to have loved.
I don't fucking know. I don't understand why. I'm so close to the mic right now, but I don't know why. It was so fun. It
Got
was
the microphone shoved into your mouth.
it really was because that shit was so. And they did it again with Sonic Adventure 2 and made it even better. They added more stuff you could do. Couldn't you couldn't just race or fight. There was also all sorts of other stuff you could do, different ways to different ways to raise them, different powers you can give them. Because like you can give them, say, this unicorn over and over and over, and then they'll start to develop unicorn horn. Give them like a bird, they'll develop wings, they can fly. I don't know why nobody else has ever done it before,
No.
or well, not done it before, but I don't know why anybody else hasn't made another one. But God, that was so fun.
What I found super fascinating in this is extremely specific to me, but I follow a lot of YouTubers. I'm a YouTube guy, not a Twitch guy.
Yeah,
And I
same.
watched a couple of guys that are older than us slash closer to our age play Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 for the first time, and they made it look like the most horrible game, like uncontrollable, nonsense, confusing. And then I watched a YouTuber who's younger than us by a generation or so who grew up with it, and he just flies through it and he's having fun and he's pointing out all these things about it. It's it's just so crazy that there's that
Yeah,
generational difference.
there's this one YouTuber I watch a lot, Nitro Rad. I've talked about him a lot, but
Talk to him.
um, I wish I could talk to him. No, I've watched him. There's a couple of videos where you kind of see him just blast through the first level of Sonic Adventure 2. I think Sonic Adventure 2. Yeah, he's running from the truck.
Yep.
Just blast through the motherfucker so quickly, and um, it's wild. It's insane how janky Sonic games can be, but they're also pretty awesome when you master how to
Yeah.
move through that goddamn game.
Yeah, I think that was weird. A weird realization to me was how the 3D Sonic games were still similar to the side-scrolling ones, and how it was like there was a speed component that you were
Yep.
supposed to. Because the first one I watched was the older guys, and they were just really struggling, and it just looked like a platformer to me.
Mm.
And then seeing someone who actually knows what they're doing do like all these combos and stuff, I was like, oh, that actually looks kind of cool.
What's weird to me too is I guess Sonic games compared to Mario games, like Mario's definitely way more acrobatic. There's a lot you can get that little Italian bastard to do that you can't get Sonic to do. But Sonic games are super duper satisfying to just when you do the homing attack just right on like maybe 7 robots in a row, and then you blast yourself onto a those little spring pads, and you just like jet across the entire goddamn level to the next part of the level. And that shit's just so cool. Like just the feeling of speed you get from just blasting your way through a level. You don't get that from really anything else.
Yeah. And then Sonic '06.
Ew, oh man.
Sonic kisses a girl.
And then
That's the
and then
subtitle of
Stoker
the
was a
game. It's just Sonic '06. Sonic kisses a girl.
thing. Oh my gosh,
Shadow
that
the
one was.
Hedgehog. Sonic Boom. Lots of Sonic and the Black Knight.
Oh, I forgot about those. Sonic and like the Thousand Rings or whatever. The Arabian Nights one.
Oh my gosh, that was supposed to be a series. Sonic
Mhm.
goes into all the different storybooks, and that
Oh,
didn't
Sonic
last.
Unleashed, the
Sonic
Werehog,
on, yeah, the
the
Werehog.
stretchy arms.
Oh my gosh, what? I'm I just want to know what happened because
It
Sonic
really went downhill.
was good, and then suddenly it just took a steep nosedive, but like not enough of a nosedive for them to stop making them.
Yeah, I think it was. I think it was really after the whole GameCube and PS2 era that they got kind of went downhill because they ported Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 to I think just GameCube. I don't know if it was on PS2, but then they had Sonic Heroes that came out on everything, and that one wasn't bad. Like it was a little shitty sometimes, but it wasn't bad.
Yeah,
I can't for the life of me think of any other 3D Sonic games that came out to the that generation, but I think that was maybe it
I think
because
I
they did.
I think it was the video game environment changing around Sonic because back in the Genesis days, everything was side scrollers. They made a really
Yeah.
good side scroller.
Mm.
Then things got 3D, and they still managed to make Sonic into 3D. Like there was everything was still platformers essentially. You had shooters and sports games and stuff, but you could still do a platformer. And
Yeah.
then platformers weren't really a thing anymore, and they tried to keep it going, and they just couldn't do it. They didn't have the talent that you saw with the Mario releases, and even they didn't really. A lot of people don't like what's the GameCube one?
GameCube one what?
Mario.
Sonic game?
Mario.
Oh, Mario Sunshine.
Sunshine, yeah. A lot of people say that's a bad Mario game. I've never touched it, but
I don't know. Yeah, it's so weird to think too about how like they try to get Sonic to do so many things, and they put him in like racing games, and they put him in like party games and all this stuff that basically Nintendo has tried and has succeeded at, but
yeah.
Sega just they couldn't get it, man. Like I think the very first Sonic racing game they ever made was it was Sonic Drift or like Sonic
Sonic
R,
R, yeah.
and Sonic R. Yeah, that one was on the Saturn, and that one was it was kind of jank, but I think I believe it was around the same time that uh, Mario Kart and the N64 came out, and that one just slapped ass. Like
Yep.
everybody was like, "I have an N64, and I need to get Mario Kart 64 now."
Yeah.
Rainbow Road, yeah,
Rain-
Yoshi's Island.
Rainbow Road. And don't forget Sonic and the Dark Brotherhood, developed by BioWare on the Nintendo DS.
Dude, that game was actually pretty good though.
Did you
Not
play it?
gonna lie, I played a little bit of it,
That
like
was
a little bit.
that was on my forever list of games to buy because of how good magazines said it were. I read the article about the review
Mhm.
for it over and over again, but I never ended up buying it.
You're probably gonna have to emulate it now because DS games are shooting up through the roof.
Of
It's
course.
sad.
No, my DS,
Um,
yeah, my DS is gone too. Gone and snapped in half.
Damn. What was I think it was I think the game what were the Game Boy Advance ones? Just Sonic
Advance.
Advance?
And those were unique, weren't they? They weren't.
Yeah, I forget exactly what the specifics were, but there was this special mode where you like customize this robot guy with different parts for certain things, and that was pretty awesome. I'm gonna look it up right now. Sonic Advance. All right, come here, you son of a bitch. There we go. Is that the right one? Oh, damn it, which one is it? There was one where there was like a little robot guy that you could customize with parts from that you get from other Sonic characters. Was it even Sonic Advance that I'm thinking about?
I don't know.
Whatever, skip it.
Okay.
But there's looking back now, like I really wish I could have. I really wish I would have bought a Sega Saturn back before it really shot up to the prices that it's at now. Because all the good games for that system are through the freaking roof.
I'm
You have to be a
sure.
lottery winner to buy a lot of those. Like especially, I bitch about this all the time. Panzer Dragoon Saga. I'll never be able to play it unless I somehow am able to emulate it because Saturn emulation is just impossible. Unless I
Really?
want to pay fucking yeah. Apparently, it's just super hard to get it to work right.
Huh.
Um, but yeah, that game's just expensive, and I'm not gonna pay like $1,000 out of pocket for one game.
No, no. Maybe if you run an
Um,
insurance scam.
Man, what else was there? Oh, Burning Rangers. That's a good one. Have you ever heard about that one?
Nope.
It's basically like a firefighting, like almost Power Rangers kind of like game for the Saturn that looked really sweet. Never played it. Won't be able to because it's expensive as fuck.
Obviously
Um,
Bayonetta. That's a Sega game.
oh yeah, that's so weird to think about that being
That
whatever
one
their current console would be at the time.
that had the Sonic rings. Like
Oh
straight
yeah,
up just
yep,
the
yep.
Sonic rings in there.
That is true. That was for currency. They were called Halos in there though.
Yeah, yeah, my bad. Crazy
Um,
Taxi was big back in the day.
Crazy Taxi. Oh god, yeah. There's a lot of people that are still crazy about that. And Outrun. People are.
Yep, yep.
I don't think they make those anymore, but they used to. What Oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank here. Shi they still kind of do the Shining series. Like it started off with Shining Force, but I think the last one they did was like Shining Resonance Refrain for the Switch. I think it's a RPG or something.
Sega All Stars Racing. I have a friend who says that that is the best kart racer, the most recent one.
Yep, we talked about that on the Hidden Gems episode actually.
Yep,
Sonic and All Stars Racing Transformed. It's
2012.
again chef's kiss.
10 years
So
ago that
good.
came out.
It's so good.
I've never
Like
played it, but I gotta believe it. If you and another person say it is.
that's right. I don't know who the other person is, but I bet they're incredibly. I bet they're credible as hell.
Super Monkey Ball. You haven't talked about Super Monkey Ball.
Oh my god, how am I? Oh my gosh. Oh, I love Super Monkey Ball so much. Yes, that's. Oh man, yes, those are so great. The most recent one is actually pretty good. They have a lot of those like crossover characters, like the cat from Persona 5 and the little
Kiryu.
Ryu or whatever. Yeah, Kiryu, little him and a little monkey ball just rolling around, going like oh as you speed up and stuff. Oh my gosh, and they have that one strategy RPG series, Sakura Wars, which again I'll never get to play because they don't port it to anything else, and it's expensive as hell now. What's another one?
Oh, that's the only
When
ones. Apparently Tetris, according to the Wikipedia here. Tetris on the Electronica 60,
what? What the hell is that?
IBM PC. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm just reading Wikipedia.
Ooh, you know what we haven't talked about yet? The
What? What?
Sega handhelds.
Oh, I was gonna ask about that. Okay, ask me right now to name a Sega handheld.
Give me a Sega handheld, Tommy.
I have no idea.
One that I love kind of poking a little fun at was actually pretty cool is the Sega Nomad or the Sega Genesis Nomad, which was like basically Sega Genesis you could play on the go, and it was cool, but like the battery didn't last at all on it. If you give that a look, it's pretty cool. The Genesis cartridge sticks out a lot in the back, if you were to play a Game Boy Color game on an advance, but it's still pretty sweet though. There's even like an AC power adapter in
Wait,
case you're.
wait. So you actually put like Genesis cartridges in it?
Hell yeah!
What? That's wild.
The screen the screen wasn't that bad on it. Like it still displayed it in, I believe, 16-bit. And then granted, it was tiny, but yeah, you played full blown Genesis games on that some bitch.
That's no, that technology didn't exist.
That was
Nomad.
super ahead of the time for sure. I don't believe. No, no, yeah, Sega or not Sega. The SNES didn't have anything like that. I'm
No,
fairly certain.
no, no.
And if they did, if someone tries to point that out, don't. And then they had the Game Gear, which uh yeah, that wasn't Genesis games at all. It was their own separate thing. But that one from people who owned one, they say that it's. I've never owned one myself, but they say there's a lot of actually pretty good games on there. And I know they ported some games from the Game Gear to the Virtual Console and the 3DS, and I think on the Wii U, but I could be wrong. I know it's for sure on the 3DS, and there was, yeah, there's quite a few that are actually pretty damn good. What's
Neat.
there? Oh yeah, Columns. That was their puzzle game franchise. It's actually pretty good. There was one. What is it? I think it's called Beyond Oasis or Oasis Defenders is what it is. It's like this like Arabian Nights style turn-based RPG. You have like your your Arabian prince and like a genie and like some thief guy that does sword dances and stuff. It's pretty great. What else you got, Tommy?
No, me? Sonic
Just
Frontiers looks bad.
that's true. Yeah, I guess yeah, we could talk yeah, we should talk about the state of Sega now, which I mean, it's weird to think that like a lot of their side stuff is pretty damn successful, but Sonic really went downhill as the years went by.
Do they
What was the
does Sega have their own like you know how the EA has their things and Nintendo Direct and
I don't oh you're talking about like oh no, I don't think so. I think
I don't think so either.
they usually do it with like whatever the developer is like Atlas games usually go with PlayStation or if Atlas has their own thing or um I know with um oh what the fuck was it? Sonic Forces. I think that was on no, they had their own I think they did have their own thing for Sonic Forces. Sonic Forces also sucked, but not Sonic Mania though, god damn it. People love Sonic Mania, but I suck at it. I think we should take a moment to talk about all the different forgotten Sonic characters.
Okay, that's okay.
uh, so we'll first start off with Cream the Rabbit. You remember Cream the Rabbit?
No.
I'm sure you don't, because she's stupid.
What games was she even in? I've heard of her, but
Well, not
only in the reference that Cream the Rabbit is a terrible name.
not only was she in Sonic Advance 2 and 3, but she was also in Sonic Heroes, Sonic Riders, and she was in the Sonic X anime,
Sonic Riders.
which also Sonic Riders Zero Gravity was really good. Everybody gives it gup every now and again, but it was good. Shut up.
First appearance, Sonic Advance 2. Man.
Yep. Cream the Rabbit, and she has a little chow named Cheese. Cream Cheese.
Nice.
Uh, and then what? I'm looking at this this list on a website, but Sticks the Badger. I don't know who that is. I can't talk
Mighty
about
the
her.
Armadillo?
Oh, yep, that's one of them. Bean the Dynamite.
These
Oh, I forgot. Tommy, we forgot to talk about Sonic the Fighters. What are we doing?
What is Sonic the Fighters?
That was a Sonic fighting game, my guy.
Tumble the Skunk.
Oh man, Bean the Dynamite is a bird, by the way. Whatever the fuck a dynamite is. Oh, he will dynamite. Okay. Bark the polar bear. Oh, Cosmo from the popular Sonic X anime. hmm Don't know about
You
that.
could just
Oh,
be
Charmy
making
Bee.
things up.
Don't forget about Charmy Bee.
Why do they have so many things about them? Did you know that Mighty the Armadillo is 16 years old?
Really?
It says his
When did
says
Mighty
his
the Armadillo first pop up?
it says his eye color is blue, but I'm looking at it and it's black. He was in Sega Sonic the Hedgehog. What's that?
I don't know. It looks like that he was also in the 32X title Knuckles Chaotix.
Oh, that
which,
was an
I guess that
arcade
makes
game.
sense.
What is
Oh,
going on? Is this real?
what the?
Look up Sega Sonic the Hedgehog.
I'm gonna Sega Sonic the Hedgehog.
It's like
Cool, I can't spell hedgehog. There we go.
this.
Oh, what the hell?
I
Oh,
Only released in Japan in June 1993.
Oh, and it's got a little flying squirrel guy in there too. I forget his name.
What is going on?
Oh yeah, Ray. That's what his name was.
Ray the Flying Squirrel and Mighty the Armadillo. It's like two people who just happened to be in the background that photobombed Sonic taking up the picture for his game.
You know what, Tommy? Look up what was it? Look up Knuckles Chaotix.
Knuckles Chaotix. I'm guessing it's with an X. Yep, it is with an X.
Yep.
What am I looking at it for? What am I looking for? Platform 32X. That's a number and a letter.
Yeah, there were quite a few characters that popped up in that game that you never see anymore. Like on the cover for the game, the little oh my gosh, alligator or crocodile guy, Vector, I believe his name was. He shows up in quite a few games, but
I always get him and the one from Donkey Kong confused.
What?
Him and the gators from Donkey Kong.
Oh, King K. Rool?
No, the enemies. Donkey Kong alligator enemies. This is the part of the podcast where we just Google things. Kremlings.
Nice. Oh, wait. You must be shitting me. You forgot about Jet the Hawk?
Jet the Hawk. That's a stupid name.
That was from back in Sonic Riders. You also had Storm the Albatross.
Jet the Hawk looks kind of cool. I'm a fan of Jet the Hawk.
You need to look up Fang the Sniper.
Fang the Sniper. We also just I think Sega's in a good place right now. This isn't a person. This isn't a
Fang the Sniper?
Fang the Sniper.
Or Fang the Weasel or something like that.
No. I just refuse to believe that.
It's cool though.
Yeah.
I don't know why we're doing this, by the way. I forget, but
the Sonic the Hedgehog movies.
Oh yeah, those are actually really good. Those are actually they're reviewing really, really well.
I like them.
Yeah,
especially we never got video game movies really as kids.
I mean, we did, but they sucked ass.
The Pokemon movie was good.
The Mario movie was awful.
Never seen it, and I probably never will.
Dude, oh my, you haven't seen? Holy shit, Tommy! Look up the Mario Bros. Movie right now.
Oh no, I've seen plenty of things about it. I don't know if I can put myself through it. There's so many things I could better do with my time.
So, oh my gosh. So in that movie, so I guess to rationalize like how high they jump in the games, they gave the guys in the movie these like super moon boots so they could jump as high as they do in the games or something stupid like that. Like if you look at the cover art for the movie, they've got these jacked up looking stupid boots. It's great.
And
they give them plungers also because they're plumbers.
Yeah, they're plumbers. It's just like in every.
Because they're plumbers.
I guess back in the day, the Mortal Kombat movie was good, but if you watch it today, it's not good. The original,
no, not at all.
The original, by the way. I like the more recent one too. Again, it's just nice to have video game movies. Like, just seeing Mortal Kombat movie with modern CGI makes me feel good.
Ooh, the Prince of Persia movie with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Persia. Oh no.
With Jake Gyllenhaal.
Jake Gyllenhaal. But yeah, so again, that's another thing that Sega has done well is making the Sonic the Hedgehog movies. And
yeah, we got really sidetracked there.
They've got good games. And again, like it took a while to get here, but I hear the Sega, they just have that tone now, that bah. I hear that and I'm like, I don't have a cringe towards it. I'm like, ooh, what's Sega doing?
That's true. What's wild to think about is maybe if Sega maybe did stay in the hardware business, their software nowadays wouldn't be as plentiful isn't the right word. I guess like it wouldn't be as highly valued really as it is now because there's not really counting Sonic a whole lot. Like a lot of their software is like people love it. You know, Bayonetta. I guess only well no maybe only the
Yakuza.
first one was Sega.
It still counts.
But yeah, Atlas, fucking everything from Yakuza
Persona, Yakuza,
is really really good. Super Monkey Ball,
Super Monkey
Valkyria
Ball.
Chronicles. That's a good recent one.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
no way
there's
if they would have kept making consoles, we would not have the Sega games that we have today.
true. Well, thank you, Sega. It's great.
Thanks, Sega. Is that our end of the Sega segment? Sega segment.
Yeah, I don't have anything else we can talk about Sega, but I guess if people want to talk to us about Sega, where can they reach us, Tommy?
We have a Twitter page. It is at SuperPodSaga. We have an email, superpodsaga@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page, which is it's Tommy and Aaron Superpod Saga. I think that's all of them.
Oh, we have an Instagram.
Oh yeah,
I ask
Instagram. Duh.
questions on
But
Instagram.
yeah,
It's just Super Hot Saga.
I would genuinely love to hear, even if you're listening to this years from now, I would love to hear your experiences with Sega games and Sega consoles, because I didn't have that.
There's one guy that we follow on Twitter. I forget his name, but let me find him really really
He's a
fast.
Sega-holic.
Yes, that's what it is. Just Segaholic. Yeah, I'm gonna give that guy a shout out because I love everything about. Even though like I try not to talk a lot of shit about Sega, but it does come out like me talking shit. But I do love Sega and I love what they do. Please keep at it, Sega. But I love seeing all sorts of retro Sega stuff because it's great. Sega's great.
Yeah,
Shout out to him.
absolutely. So it's my turn to pick the next subject, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Excellent. Next week, we are going to be discussing the best video game sidekicks and companions.
Oh, that's a good one.
I know, right? I know. I was really happy when I thought of that one because there's a lot.
There's already quite a few that I have on top of my head right. All right. Yep. This is.
We'll set aside 3 hours for VV talk.
Vivi's his own man. He's not the sidekick.
He's not
his own man.
He's the main character.
He needs to get his own goddamn game. He's gonna branch out like all the chocobos and moogles do, man.
Oh my gosh.
Super Vivi Adventures.
VV Grand Prix. Which you could do because there's so many of their robots or whatever. So yeah, look forward to that next week. Twitter us, Gmail us, Instagram us.
Or before we go, lemmings, but they're all VVs.
Vivings. We're gonna have that be a segment.
Right.
We're gonna have that be a segment in the next one. VV and games.
You just do it.
We will. Okay. Thank you for listening, everyone. Bye.
Bye bye.